Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychologist who believed that most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens to us, but from what lies hidden within us. One of Jung's most powerful insights was this: we often sabotage the very things we long for: love, intimacy, peace, success. When something meaningful enters our lives, instead of embracing it, we ghost. We pick fights. We shut down. But why do we destroy what we care about the most? Maybe because deep down we don't believe we deserve it. Or maybe because a part of us is terrified that it won't last. Or maybe, and this is the hardest to face, something beautiful touches a part of us we've worked so hard to bury, and that's unbearable. So we push it away before it can leave us. Jung believed these patterns aren't random. They come from deep inner wounds, parts of ourselves we've rejected, hidden, or never even looked at. And our pain doesn't vanish when we ignore it. It just finds another way to express itself in self-sabotage, anxiety, depression, or broken relationships. And we start to tell ourselves, I'm just unlucky in love. But maybe the truth is that something inside of us is quietly afraid of love. We say, I just can't seem to find peace. But maybe peace would force us to sit with feelings we've spent years running from. Jung believed that healing begins when we stop blaming the world outside and start turning inward. It's not an easy journey. Indeed, it means facing the parts of ourselves that we've exiled. But it's the only way to stop the cycle of destroying what we love and start learning how to hold it. So in this video, we'll answer the question, why do we destroy everything we love? And more importantly, how can we stop using the wisdom of Carl Jung? Number 1. Recognize the pattern without judgment. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This quote points to a deeply uncomfortable truth. Many of the things we believe are happening to us are actually patterns we are unknowingly repeating. And often, those patterns lead us to destroy the very things we care about. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever pushed away someone who truly cared for you, only to regret it later? Or sabotaged a project just as it began to succeed? Maybe you chalked it up to bad luck or bad timing. But what if these aren't coincidences? What if they're unconscious habits buried so deep that you've stopped noticing them altogether? Jung believed these patterns arise from the unconscious. He divided the human psyche into two realms: the conscious mind, our thoughts, choices, and identity, and the unconscious mind, where hidden forces shape our behavior. At the surface of consciousness is the ego, our sense of I, the identity we know ourselves by. I'm honest, I'm independent, I'm a hard worker. But just behind the ego lies the persona, the social mask we wear to fit in. For example, someone might see themselves as kind and authentic, but at work they play the role of the high-performing perfectionist, always smiling, never showing weakness, because that's what's expected. The things we hide behind that mask, our fears, insecurities, and desires, don't vanish. They just get pushed down, waiting to surface in unexpected ways. This is where we enter deeper waters. Behind the persona lies the unconscious, a hidden reservoir of repressed emotions, forgotten memories, unmet needs, and unspoken longings. It's like an old house with locked rooms we've forgotten how to enter, but the creaks and whispers still echo through the halls of our daily lives. Often formed early in life through trauma, shame, or neglect, these buried forces shape how we react, what we choose, and who we're drawn to, usually without us realizing it. That's why the first step in Jungian healing is deceptively simple. Notice the pattern, but without judging yourself for it. Now, this last part is crucial. Most people spiral into guilt. I ruin everything, or I'm broken. But that only strengthens the very pattern you're trying to break. Instead, Jung invites us to observe ourselves like a curious, compassionate detective. Watch what you do when life gets real, when love gets close, when success is near, or when someone truly sees you. Ask yourself, what do I tend to do in those moments? Do I withdraw, get angry, go numb? What do I feel just before that? Fear, shame, a sense that I don't deserve it. For instance, someone who picks fights every time a relationship deepens may not be unlucky in love, they may be terrified of being truly known. So they sabotage the connection before the other person can hurt them. The key is that this isn't deliberate. It's not weakness. It's unconscious. That's why it needs awareness, not blame. A helpful practice is journaling. Write down moments where you felt triggered or acted against your own best interest. And don't rush to fix it. Just notice. Ask, what was I protecting myself from? What part of me felt threatened? What story did I tell myself? You may discover that many patterns trace back to old wounds, fear of abandonment, not being enough, or being hurt again. And here's the beauty. The moment you see the pattern clearly and without judgment, it begins to lose its grip. You interrupt the autopilot. You start choosing consciously. Jung urges us to see ourselves as not broken, but as people who've been trying to protect ourselves in outdated ways. When we stop blaming and start watching, the real work of transformation begins. In short, before you can change a pattern, you must first recognize it. But do it with kindness. Not everything broken needs to be punished. Some parts of you just want to be understood. Number 2. Meet your shadow. In the words of Jung, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Jung called it the shadow, the part of you that holds everything you've disowned, the anger you weren't allowed to feel, the desires you were told were shameful, the needs you learned to hide to be loved. This shadow doesn't vanish just because you ignore it. It gets buried deep in your unconscious, but it still drives your behavior. To understand it better, Jung broke the unconscious into 2 layers, the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. The personal unconscious holds your repressed memories, emotions, and experiences, things you once felt but couldn't safely express. The collective unconscious, on the other hand, is a deeper, universal layer we all share as human beings. It's filled with timeless symbols and instincts, archetypes like the anima, animus, hero, mother, or trickster that shape how we see the world, even if we're not aware of it. The shadow belongs to your personal unconscious. It's made of everything your conscious mind has rejected, and unless you bring it into awareness, it continues to shape your life from behind the scenes. It doesn't matter how kind, talented, or spiritual you are, everyone has a shadow. And the more you try to suppress it, the more power it gains over your life. That's why the second step is this. After recognizing the pattern, you must look inside it. What are you really running from? What uncomfortable emotion, memory, or truth are you pushing underground? Let's say you're constantly sabotaging relationships. Maybe the pattern isn't just fear of being hurt. Maybe, deep down, a part of you feels unworthy of love. And that part, that aching belief, is the shadow. Not because it's evil, but because it lives in darkness. It hasn't been seen, accepted, or healed. Maybe when you were younger, you were only praised when you achieved something, got good grades, acted mature, or didn't cause trouble. Over time, you learned that love had to be earned, that simply being yourself wasn't enough. So you buried the parts of you that felt needy, messy, or insecure. You became the high achiever, the caretaker, the one who has it all together. But now, in adult relationships, when someone offers you genuine love, not for what you do, but for who you are, it feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, unsafe. You might unconsciously test them, push them away, or end things before they get too real. Not because you don't want love, but because a younger part of you still believes you don't deserve it. Jung believed the shadow isn't just where our bad traits go, it's also where our unlived potential hides. Passion you denied, confidence you suppressed, truths you swallowed to be accepted. When we bury those things, we don't become better, we become split. One part of us tries to do life the right way, while the other part, the shadow, acts out in secret. And that's when the sabotage happens. Affairs, addictions, emotional explosions, ghosting, not because someone is evil, but because something in them is aching to be seen. So what do? You begin to meet your shadow, not with violence, but with honesty. Start with just a few gentle questions. What am I most afraid people would see in me? What parts of me did I learn were unacceptable growing up? When do I become reactive, overly sensitive, or avoidant? And what's the fear underlying that? What traits in others really get under my skin? And could they actually be parts of myself that I'm avoiding? Jung called this projection, when we see something in someone else and react strongly because it's something we don't want to face inside. Now write your answers down and just sit with them. No need to fix anything yet. This is not self-improvement. This is self-intimacy. Sometimes just admitting I'm jealous, I'm lonely, or I'm still angry about that thing from years ago opens the door. The moment you bring the shadow to light, it softens. Because shadows are scary only in the dark. When you name them, they stop controlling you. This step isn't about trying to be perfect or forcing yourself to change. It's about accepting all parts of yourself. You can't heal what you ignore. And if you don't heal it, it can hurt others or yourself. So the shadow isn't your enemy. It wants to be understood and accepted. If you face it with courage, you'll stop being afraid of who you really are. You'll stop destroying what you love and start protecting it instead. Number 3. Befriend your inner saboteur. In the words of Jung, active imagination is a way of entering the unconscious and engaging with its images and symbols. It's like having a dialogue with your inner world. By now, you've recognized the pattern. You've met the shadow. But even after doing that inner work, you may still find yourself repeating the same destructive behaviors. Why? Because understanding alone isn't enough. Jung believed that true transformation happens when we form a relationship with the parts of ourselves we used to reject. That includes the part that ruins things, the part that lashes out, pulls away, shuts down, or sabotages the good. Jung calls this process active imagination, a technique that allows the conscious mind to speak directly with the unconscious. Think of it like sitting down with the saboteur inside you, not to silence it, but to hear it out. Now, this might sound strange, but it's powerful. Try this the next time you feel yourself pulling away from something you care about, whether it's a person, a dream, or a moment of peace. Pause. Close your eyes and ask yourself inwardly, what are you trying to protect me from? What are you afraid will happen if I fully embrace this? And what do you need me to hear right now? Then listen. You might be surprised by what comes up. Maybe that part of you is still stuck in a memory where love ended in betrayal. Maybe it believes success will isolate you. Maybe it's terrified that if you're truly seen, you'll be rejected. It's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to guard an old wound the only way it knows how. Jung taught that these inner figures, the saboteur, the critic, the wounded child, are autonomous fragments of the psyche. They're not logical, they're emotional. And until you dialogue with them, they'll keep working in the background, trying to protect you by destroying what feels dangerous, even if it's love or joy. And that's why this step is not about suppression. It's about conversation. You can even write a dialogue in your journal. One side of the page is you, the other is the saboteur. Let it speak. Let it rant. Cry, plead, accuse, whatever it needs to do. Then respond from your higher self, the part of you that wants healing, wholeness, and growth. This might feel awkward at first, but over time, the inner war softens. The saboteur becomes less reactive because it feels heard, and once it's heard, it no longer needs to act out. Remember, what you resist inside yourself only grows stronger, but what you meet with presence begins to transform. So instead of asking, how do I stop ruining the things I love, start asking, what's the frightened part of me trying to say? Because when you listen to that part, not with fear but with compassion, you gain influence over it. You create space. You begin to respond rather than react. And that is how the healing begins. Not by silencing the saboteur, but by befriending it. Number 4. Embrace your anima or animus. According to Jung, every man carries with him the eternal image of woman. This image is fundamentally unconscious, a hereditary factor of primordial origin. Carl Jung believed that inside every man lives a hidden woman, the anima, and inside every woman lives a hidden man, the animus. Now, this wasn't a belief around gender or biology, but around energy. The anima is your emotional depth, your intuition, your ability to surrender and feel. The animus is your inner strength, your reason, your drive to act and define. Together, they form the full spectrum of what it means to be human. Jung saw the anima and animus as powerful archetypes within the collective unconscious, the deep, inherited layer of the psyche that holds universal patterns we all share as humans. And because they often remain unconscious, they shape how we see and relate to the opposite sex, especially in romantic relationships. The problem is that most people only live half their psyche. Men are raised to toughen up and suppress their softness. Women are conditioned to downplay their assertiveness or reason. And so these inner opposites, like the shadow, remain buried in the unconscious, instead of being integrated. So what happens to these parts of us we bury? Well, often we start searching for them in others. This is why so many of us fall in love with people who seem to complete us. A man might be captivated by a deeply emotional woman, not because she's magical, but because she reflects his own suppressed sensitivity. A woman might be drawn to a confident, assertive man, not realizing she's projecting her own untapped power onto him. And then expectations build. We unconsciously ask the other person to carry what we haven't developed in ourselves. This is where relationships often get distorted. You don't just love the person, you need them. You rely on them to help you feel whole. And when they fail to meet that role, because inevitably no one can play someone else's soul, you'll feel disappointed, even betrayed. Some men might accuse their partner of being too emotional, not realizing he's rejecting the anima he was initially drawn to. Some women might call their partners too cold, not realizing she's disowning her own animus that longs for strength and independence. What was once enchanting becomes unbearable. Not because the other person changed, but because your own projection broke. This is why Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation only happens when people are willing to stop projecting and start integrating. So, how do you do this? Start by noticing what you're drawn to in others. Do you find yourself always seeking emotional validation from someone else? Do you depend on their strength to make you feel secure? Or maybe you idealize someone for being free, wild, and expressive, qualities you've never allowed yourself to embody. Instead of clinging to these traits in others, try to grow them in yourself. If you're overly logical, practice feeling without analyzing. If you tend to be passive, practice standing firm. If you keep searching for affection, try offering it to yourself. As a daily practice, ask yourself, what do I admire in others that I haven't developed in myself? When do I idealize someone instead of understanding them as a real person? And is this discomfort I feel in this relationship pointing me to a part of myself I've neglected? The goal isn't to become emotionless or hyper-independent. The goal is to balance, to stop needing someone else to fill the gaps in your psyche. When you do that, your relationships change. You stop clinging, you stop resenting, and you begin relating as a whole person, not a half looking for its missing piece. Because real love, the kind that's grounded and deep, only begins when you stop outsourcing your soul. Number 5. Integrate through conscious action. In our final quote from Carl Jung for this video, he says, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Jung believed that the goal of life isn't to become perfect, it's to become whole. This process, which he called individuation, is about reclaiming all the parts of yourself you've hidden, rejected, or buried. And it doesn't happen by standing in front of a mirror, reciting a mantra, imagining a better version of yourself. It happens in the small, hard choices you make every day, especially when you're triggered. And no, it's not a one-time breakthrough, it's a daily practice. Individuation unfolds slowly, like a lifelong conversation with yourself. You meet yourself through journaling, dreams, therapy, long walks, and honest conversations. These are the moments when you turn your attention inward, not to judge or fix, but to understand. When you notice you're triggered, maybe a sudden surge of anger, jealousy, or defensiveness, instead of blaming others or running away, pause and ask yourself, what part of me is hurting? What's this feeling trying to tell me? This pause is crucial. It turns reactive suffering into conscious learning. For example, anger might be a sign that a boundary has been crossed, or that you're feeling powerless in a situation where you want to be seen and respected. Jealousy often reveals a deep yearning for connection or recognition, a part of you that fears being left out or not being enough. Fear or shame might be tied to past wounds where you felt abandoned or rejected. Integration means welcoming these parts instead of fighting or denying them. Instead of labeling anger as bad, you explore what it protects. Maybe your dignity or your desire for fairness. Instead of shaming jealousy, you see it as a messenger of unmet needs or insecurities. This doesn't mean giving these feelings free rein or justifying harmful behavior, but it does mean sitting with them honestly, learning their language, and gently guiding them towards healthier expression. When anger is integrated, it might become assertiveness. When jealousy is integrated, it might become a motivation to build deeper trust or work on self-worth. Slowly, with this daily practice of awareness, you start to respond differently. You stop automatically shutting down or sabotaging your relationships or your goals. You learn to stay present with discomfort rather than escaping it. You learn that every shadow part is a doorway to a deeper truth about yourself. Real growth begins the moment you catch yourself about to repeat the same old pattern and make a different choice. That's integration. It's not a breakthrough moment, it's a daily decision. Most people think healing is a feeling, that one day they'll just feel better. But the truth is less romantic. Healing is action. It's how you respond when someone gets too close and your instinct is to sabotage. It's pausing, breathing, and asking, is this real, or is this an old wound being triggered? These moments are sacred. They're where the shadow, all the parts of you you've rejected, begins to soften. Not by force, but by being welcomed. You don't fix your shadow. You sit with it and learn to listen. And slowly, you stop destroying what you love because you're no longer at war with yourself. The more you practice conscious action, the more you integrate your inner world. And the more whole you become, the less you need to push away peace, love, intimacy, or success. So when things feel too real, too intimate, or too triggering, pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting to this moment or to an old memory? What would it look like to respond with presence instead of defense? What small act reflects who I'm becoming and not who I've been? This is the work. Not becoming perfect, but becoming real, whole, integrated, one choice at a time. This is how you stop sabotaging everything you love. This is how you break the pattern. By choosing awareness over fear, presence over defense, and conscious action over automatic reaction, you reclaim your power to change your life moment by moment. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist. And for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.